Welcome to the world of science fiction, where extraordinary tales come to life. Enjoy the journey. The sterile, fluorescent lights of Judicial Complex 7 buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the crystalline chamber. Aiden Kais slouched in his leather jacket, a coffee cup clutched in his right hand as he checked his messages on a holographic display emanating from his wrist. He'd been summoned here on some bureaucratic bullshit. Probably another fine for unauthorized encryption protocols. Proceeding 2187B will now commence, announced the AI judge, its voice resonating through the chamber with artificial gravitas. Aiden glanced up, noticing for the first time 3 women seated behind a transparent barrier. They weren't human. Their silver hair caught the light like liquid mercury, their skin tones ranging from deep sapphire blue to various shades of violet. Even from this distance, their otherworldly beauty was unmistakable. A pale, thin man in ornate robe stood nearby, gnawing nervously at his thumbnail. Aiden recognized him from newscasts. Consul the diplomatic representative from the Shiani system. What the hell was a high-ranking alien diplomat doing at his misdemeanor hearing? Based on paragraph 9, 4.7 of the Interplanetary Marriage Code, intoned the AI judge, Earth citizen Aiden Kais is hereby appointed as husband to Princesses Selen, Nora, and Tuyan, granddaughters of Consul Aiden's coffee cup froze halfway to his lips. What? The hot liquid sloshed over the rim, burning his hand. He barely noticed. The consul turned to him, his face the color of chalk. Congratulations, son-in-law. Behind the barrier, chaos erupted. The blue-skinned woman, her muscles visible even beneath her ceremonial attire, spat defiantly on the floor. The other 2, both violet-skinned though with different facial features, exchanged shocked glances. This proceeding is complete, declared the AI judge. Union registered in all systems. Cohabitation must commence within 24 hours. Aiden stood rooted to the spot as the barrier lifted. The 3 alien princesses stepped forward, their long silver hair floating around them as if underwater. Guards flanked them, urging them toward him. There must be some mistake, Aiden said, addressing the consul. I didn't sign up for this. The consul avoided his gaze. The algorithms have determined compatibility. The treaty is satisfied. Treaty? What treaty? The one preventing interstellar war, the consul whispered, his voice barely audible. Please, just make this work. He turned and hurried away before Aiden could respond. Sir, a security drone hovered near Aiden's shoulder. Please escort your new spouses to your registered dwelling immediately. Aiden's apartment door slid open with a soft hydraulic hiss. The biometric scanner had recognized his new family status, automatically granting access to his 3 unexpected wives. This is where you live? The blue-skinned woman, Tuyan, if he'd heard correctly, curled her lip in disgust. She pulled out a small device that projected a laser grid over Aiden's body, scanning him from head to toe. What are you doing? Aiden demanded. Threat assessment, Tuyan replied coldly. Low muscle density, primitive neural architecture. You will likely die quickly. She clicked her tongue, exposing teeth that seemed slightly sharper than human ones. Don't mind her, said one of the violet-skinned women, Nora, as she perched herself on his kitchen counter. She crossed her legs deliberately, the slit in her ceremonial dress revealing a thigh that glowed faintly in the dim light of his apartment. I can think of better ways to get acquainted. Aiden stepped back. Look, I don't know what's going on, but I didn't agree to marry anyone, let alone 3. He hesitated. Princesses? Is that even real? Oh, it's very real, said the 3rd woman, Selen. Unlike her sisters, she hadn't moved from the entryway. Her eyes, silver like her hair, scanned the apartment with analytical precision. As real as the encrypted neural interface you're running. Interesting that it's coded in ancient Xiani dialect. Most humans can't even pronounce our modern language, let alone master the dead variants. Aiden froze. His illegal neural enhancements were supposed to be undetectable. Lucky guess. Selen's eyes narrowed. There are no coincidences in the quantum flow, Earthman. Aiden caught his reflection in the mirrored surface of his refrigerator. For a split second, he noticed the image lagging behind his movements, a glitch in his perception overlay. He mentally recalibrated, hoping none of them had noticed. "Why don't we all calm down?" he suggested, raising his hands placatingly. "I'll make some coffee and we can sort this out." "You think we want your bitter earth stimulants?" Tuyan scoffed. "We demand transport back to our grandfather immediately." "Fine by me," Aiden replied, moving to his communication terminal. "Let me just—" He pressed his palm to the screen, but instead of illuminating, it flashed red. "User not recognized," the system announced. "Please contact Network Administration." Frowning, Aiden tried again. "Access denied. This terminal has been locked for security reasons." "What the hell?" Aiden muttered, pulling out his personal communicator. The screen displayed only one message: "Account deleted. Network access blocked." "You're disappearing from the digital matrix," Selen observed, suddenly at his side. "Interesting." Aiden tried the door. It wouldn't budge. He attempted to activate the food synthesizer, but it too remained dormant. His smart home system no longer recognized him as a resident. "Great," Nora said, sliding off the counter. "Our new husband is an outlaw. Grandfather has truly outdone himself this time." "This isn't my doing," Aiden said, though he knew better. "Someone powerful wanted him off the grid, and they'd used this bizarre marriage arrangement to trap him." Tuyan moved to the window, peering outside. "We're being watched. Surveillance drones. Military grade." "What did you do to anger the Order of Resets?" Selen asked, her voice betraying genuine curiosity. Aiden's head snapped up. "The what?" "The Order of Resets," Nora repeated, suddenly serious. "The most feared enforcement agency in the quadrant. They reset problematic individuals, wipe them from existence, both digital and physical." For the first time since this ordeal began, Aiden smiled. Well, finally some peace and quiet without all those notifications. The three women stared at him with varying expressions of disbelief. "You're either insane or—" Tuyan began, but was interrupted by a high-pitched whine from outside. "Get down!" Aiden shouted, diving across the room to tackle Selen just as a laser bolt sizzled through the space where her head had been moments before. Nora screamed, ducking behind the counter. Tuyan, however, pulled a small weapon from her ceremonial robes. "No," Aiden commanded, his voice suddenly carrying an authority that made even Tuyan hesitate. "Stay inside." He moved to a decorative stand near the door and retrieved what appeared to be an antique walking stick. "Since you're my wives now, I guess I'll have to protect you." Before any of them could respond, Aiden was out on the balcony. 3 combat drones hovered outside, their weapons trained on the apartment. Beyond them, a sniper was positioned on a neighboring rooftop, the red targeting laser visible against the twilight sky. What happened next occurred so quickly that the princesses could barely follow. Aiden moved with inhuman speed, vaulting over the balcony railing to land on the nearest drone. His cane, apparently far more than it appeared, pierced the machine's central processing unit. As it sparked and fell, he leapt to the next one, using its momentum to propel himself toward the third. Within seconds, all 3 drones lay smoking on the ground below. Aiden stood on the balcony of the adjacent building, facing the sniper. The man's weapon clattered to the ground as Aiden approached him. The princesses rushed to their balcony, watching in astonishment as Aiden handled the would-be assassin with casual violence. He didn't kill the man, but the sniper's arm bent at an unnatural angle as Aiden whispered something in his ear. Finally, Aiden picked up the fallen communicator. "Listen carefully," he said into it, his voice carrying clearly to the princesses despite the distance. "Tell your superiors that the next warning will come in the form of amputation. Understood?" He tossed the communicator back to the trembling sniper and made his way back across the gap between buildings, leaping with graceful precision to land on his own balcony. The princesses stared at him in shock. Blood spattered his face and leather jacket, yet he seemed completely unfazed. As he stepped back into the apartment, they noticed the t-shirt visible beneath his open jacket bore the ironic message, "Not a morning person." "You're bleeding," Selin observed, her analytical tone failing to hide her amazement. Aiden wiped his face. "Not my blood." "Who are you?" Tuyan demanded, her earlier disdain replaced by wary respect. "Just a guy who didn't ask to be married," Aiden replied, shedding his blood-stained jacket. "But apparently that's the least of our problems now." "Why would the Order of Resets want you dead?" Nora asked, inching closer to examine him with newfound interest. "They don't want me dead," Aiden corrected, moving to the kitchen to wash his hands. "They want me erased. There's a difference." "And why would they want that?" Selin pressed. Aiden dried his hands on a towel, turning to face his three new wives. "Probably the same reason your grandfather was so anxious to get rid of you." Tuyan's hand flew to her weapon again. "How dare you?" "Oh, come on," Aiden interrupted. "You think it's coincidence that the Consul married off his 3 granddaughters to a random human. He couldn't wait to get rid of you." "That's not true," Nora protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Isn't it?" Aiden challenged. "Tell me, princesses, what did you do to piss off someone powerful enough to make your own grandfather sacrifice you?" The 3 women exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. "We may have offended someone," Selin admitted reluctantly. "The current leader of the Order," Tuyan added, her jaw tight, "a pathetic man with delusions of grandeur." "And now we're married to a pathetic human," Nora sighed dramatically. "Grandfather's solution to everything." Aiden leaned against the counter, studying them. "Your marriage traditions. When you marry outside your species, what happens to your status?" Selin's eyes widened slightly. "We become part of the husband's family. We lose our political influence in the Shiani court." "Convenient," Aiden noted. "Your grandfather gets you off-world and out of trouble, and all it costs him is 3 granddaughters he probably wasn't very attached to anyway." "You know nothing of our family," Tuyan snapped, but there was hurt beneath her anger. "I know enough," Aiden replied, his voice softening unexpectedly. "I know what it's like to be expendable." A moment of silence fell over the apartment, broken only by the distant sounds of the city outside. "So, what happens now?" Nora finally asked. "We're trapped in this apartment with a man who can apparently take down military drones with a stick, while one of the most powerful organizations in the galaxy wants us all dead." Aiden moved to the window, peering out at the darkening sky. "Now? Now we figure out how to survive the night. Because, trust me, princesses." He turned back to them, his eyes reflecting an unnatural gleam in the low light. "That was just the welcome party. The real trouble hasn't even started yet." As if on cue, the entire building shuddered as a distant explosion lit up the skyline. The lights in the apartment flickered, then died completely. "And here they come," Aiden muttered, reaching for his cane. In the sudden darkness, the 3 silver-haired women moved closer together, their glowing skin providing the only illumination. "Stay behind me," Aiden ordered, his voice changing subtly, deeper, more commanding. "And whatever happens next, remember, you married into this, for better or worse." The princesses exchanged glances in the darkness. What had seemed like a punishment, being married off to a seemingly ordinary human, was rapidly transforming into something far more complex and dangerous. The explosion had knocked out power to the entire block. Aiden navigated through the darkness with surprising ease, his silhouette barely visible against the emergency lights that flickered in the hallway. "Stay close," he instructed the princesses, his voice low but commanding. Tuyan scoffed. "Where exactly are we going? Your entire dwelling is compromised." "And you've been digitally erased," Selen added, her analytical mind already processing their limited options. "We can't access transportation, can't purchase supplies." "We don't need to," Aiden replied, stopping at a door 3 units down from his apartment. He rapped his knuckles against the metal surface in a specific pattern. The door slid open immediately, revealing a petite woman with striking features. She couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, but her presence somehow filled the doorway. Her eyes widened at the sight of Aiden. "Sir!" she exclaimed, immediately dropping into a half-bow. "I wasn't expecting you to—" She paused, noticing the 3 silver-haired alien women behind him. "Oh, Mira," Aiden said casually, as if they weren't in the middle of a crisis. "We need shelter and food. My place is a bit compromised at the moment." Mira stepped aside without hesitation. "Of course, sir. Please, all of you, come in." The princesses exchanged wary glances but followed Aiden inside. Mira's apartment was surprisingly spacious, minimalist in design but with state-of-the-art technology visible throughout. "Sir?" Nora whispered to Aiden, arching an eyebrow. Aiden ignored the question, turning to Mira. "They've blocked my access codes. Full digital erasure protocol." Mira's eyes narrowed. "That's extreme. Who did you anger this time?" "Apparently the Order of Resets," he replied, dropping into a comfortable chair as if he owned the place. Mira's composure faltered for a split second. "I see. And these are my wives," Aiden said with a hint of irony. "It's been an eventful day." "I'll prepare food," Mira said, recovering quickly. She moved toward her kitchen area, her movements efficient and precise. "Will you be requiring anything else, sir?" "Just some peace and quiet for now. I'll handle the digital blockade later." Once Mira had moved out of earshot, Tuyan leaned in. "Who is she?" Her voice dripped with suspicion. "A neighbor," Aiden replied simply. "A neighbor who calls you sir and jumps to attention when you knock," Selen observed. "Curious?" Aiden leaned back, stretching his arms above his head. "What can I say? I'm a respected member of the community." Nora laughed, the sound like chiming crystal. "You're something, Earthman, but not what you appear to be." "Few of us are," Aiden countered, his eyes meeting hers. Later that night, they returned to Aiden's apartment. The power had been restored, though most systems remained offline due to his digital erasure. With Mira's help, they'd secured enough supplies to last them several days. "Home sweet home," Aiden muttered, dropping their provisions on the kitchen counter. Or what's left of it. The apartment had been partially damaged in the attack, but remained habitable. Scorch marks decorated one wall, and the balcony door hung at an odd angle. "How long do we have before they return?" Selen asked, already examining the apartment's weaknesses. "A few hours at least," Aiden replied. "They'll regroup, analyze what went wrong with their first attempt. And then they'll come with greater force," Tuyan concluded grimly. "Most likely." Nora drifted through the apartment, trailing her fingers along various surfaces. "So, this is how humans live. Quaint." "What did you expect? A palace?" Aiden asked, removing his leather jacket and hanging it by the door. "Something less primitive," she admitted, "though I suppose it has a certain charm." As night deepened, the question of sleeping arrangements became unavoidable. "I'll take the couch," he offered, already gathering a blanket. "Nonsense," Nora said, her voice dropping to a seductive purr. "We're married now, aren't we? Surely there's room for all of us." Tuyan rolled her eyes. Always the diplomat sister. I'm simply being practical, Nora defended, though her sly smile suggested otherwise. I'll stand watch, Tuyan declared. Someone should remain alert. Suit yourself, Aiden shrugged, retreating to his bedroom. The following days established an uneasy routine. The princesses, accustomed to lives of luxury and service, struggled to adapt to their new circumstances. Aiden, for his part, seemed almost amused by their difficulties. On the third morning, Selin discovered an antique device in a storage closet. Curious, she activated it without warning. The massage automaton, a relic from at least 30 years prior, whirred to life, its mechanical arms extending toward her. "What is this primitive?" she began, before the device embraced her, its programmed routines initiating. "Wife signature detected," the machine announced in a tinny voice. "Beginning relaxation protocol." Selin yelped as the massager began working on her shoulders. "Aiden, get this thing off me." Aiden appeared in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, and leaned against the frame. "I see you found Edgar." "Edgar?" Selin gasped as the machine hit a particularly tense spot. "My massage bot. Wedding gift from an ex." His mouth quirked in amusement. "Seems to like you." "Make it stop." "I don't know. You look like you're enjoying it," he teased, making no move to help. The massager continued its work, its mechanical hands surprisingly dexterous. Despite herself, Selin felt her resistance fading as the tension in her muscles dissolved. "Oh," she sighed, her silver eyes half closing. "That's actually quite pleasant." Aiden watched her for a moment longer, his expression unreadable, before quietly retreating. That evening, Nora surprised everyone by preparing dinner, not using the food synthesizer, which remained offline due to Aiden's digital erasure, but actually cooking with raw ingredients she'd somehow procured. "What is this?" Tuyan demanded, eyeing the steaming plates with suspicion. "Food," Nora replied simply, arranging candles around the table. "Real food, prepared by hand, an ancient art form on our world and apparently here as well." Aiden stared at the spread with genuine surprise. "Where did you learn to cook?" Nora smiled mysteriously. "There's much you don't know about us, Earthman." The meal was served by candlelight, creating an intimacy none of them had anticipated. Nora had dressed for the occasion as well, her gown cut low enough to reveal the luminescent patterns that swirled across her violet skin. "This is—" Aiden began, tasting the unfamiliar dish. "Delicious," Selin finished for him, equally surprised. Tuyan grudgingly nodded her agreement. "A small talent," Nora demurred, though her eyes shone with pleasure at their reaction. "On our world, preparing food by hand is considered a lost art, something only scholars and historians bother with." "Why did you bother?" Aiden asked directly. Nora's eyes met his across the flickering candlelight. "Perhaps I wanted to show that not everything old is obsolete." The tension in the room shifted, becoming something else entirely. Later that night, Aiden awoke to find Tuyan sleeping in his bed. Unlike her sisters, she made no pretense about it. She lay atop the covers, completely naked, her blue skin gleaming faintly in the darkness. Her position was tactical, battle-ready as she'd call it, allowing her to spring into action at the slightest disturbance. Aiden silently moved to leave the room, but her voice stopped him. "Why haven't you touched any of us?" she asked bluntly, her eyes still closed. He paused. "What makes you think I want to? Your pupils dilate when you look at Nora's legs. Your respiration increases when Selin speaks in the ancient tongue, and you avoid looking at me directly when I'm near." She opened one eye. "Basic physiological responses. You can't hide them." "Is that why you're in my bed? Scientific curiosity?" Tuyan sat up, unself-conscious in her nakedness. "Among my people, warriors often mate before battle. It sharpens the senses." "Is a battle coming?" "Isn't it always?" she countered. Aiden studied her for a moment, then turned away. "Get some sleep, princess. You'll need it." Over the following days, a strange intimacy developed between the four of them. In quiet moments, they began to learn about each other beyond the surface. Selin discovered Aiden's knowledge of the ancient Shiani dialect went beyond mere encryption protocols. She found him one evening reading from an actual physical book, a rarity in itself, written in the dead language. "Your pronunciation is flawless," she observed, genuinely impressed. "How did a human come to learn our ancestral tongue?" Aiden closed the book. "I had a good teacher." "Who?" His eyes met hers, and for a moment she glimpsed something ancient behind them. Someone who understood the value of history. Nora continued her seduction attempts, each more elaborate than the last. She recreated traditional Siani courtship rituals, adapting them to their limited resources. Her efforts were both transparent and oddly touching. After one particularly elaborate display involving a dance that left her breathless and glowing, Aiden finally asked, "Why are you trying so hard?" Nora paused, momentarily dropping her seductive facade. "Because you're the first man who hasn't immediately fallen at my feet. It's refreshing." Tuyan, meanwhile, observed Aiden with growing respect. His calm in the face of danger, his strategic mind, his combat skills, all qualities valued among her warrior caste. She began joining him for his morning training sessions, their bodies moving in sync as they practiced ancient fighting forms. "You fight like a Xiani shadow guard," she noted one morning after a particularly intense session. "Is that a compliment?" he asked, toweling off sweat. "It's an impossibility," she replied. "The techniques are kept secret, taught only to those born into the warrior bloodlines." Aiden merely smiled. On the seventh day, the relative peace shattered. 3 figures in black cloaks materialized outside the apartment building, elite fighters from the Order of Resets, their faces concealed by darkness even in broad daylight. Tuyan spotted them first from the balcony. "They're here," she announced, her hand already reaching for her weapon. Aiden glanced outside, then calmly began putting on his boots. "They've come?" Selin asked, her face paling. "Excellent," Aiden replied with unsettling nonchalance. "Tell the girls to put the kettle on. I'll be back soon." "You can't go out there alone," Nora protested. "There are 3 of them, and they're elite fighters." "I noticed," Aiden said dryly. "We should fight together," Tuyan insisted. "We're not helpless." "No," Aiden's voice hardened. "You stay here. I'll handle this." He walked out the door before they could argue further. The princesses rushed to the balcony, watching as Aiden approached the 3 cloaked figures on the street below. "You have 10 seconds to explain why I shouldn't tear your heads off," they heard him say, his voice carrying clearly in the still air. "I was having a very interesting date with 3 gorgeous women, and you interrupted it." The leader laughed, a sound like grinding metal. What happened next occurred with such speed that even Tuyan's trained warrior eyes could barely follow. Aiden moved like lightning, dropping the first fighter with a casual sweep of his leg. The second raised his weapon, only to have it crushed between Aiden's fingers. The third managed to fire a shot that Aiden seemed to simply sidestep before delivering a devastating blow to the man's chest that left him gasping on the ground. None of them died, but all 3 lay incapacitated. "Now," Aiden said, standing over them calmly, "anyone got a light?" The leader, trembling visibly now, extended a shaking hand with an igniter. Aiden calmly pulled a cigarette from behind his ear, lit it, and walked away trailing smoke, as casual as if he'd just stepped out for a breath of air. The princesses retreated from the balcony, stunned into silence. When Aiden returned, they stared at him with new eyes. "How did you—" Nora began. "Negotiate," Aiden supplied, taking a long drag from his cigarette. "I can be very persuasive." That night, something shifted between them. The walls of resistance crumbled as passion took hold. What began as Nora's seductive advances escalated as Selen's intellect and Tuyan's raw power joined the dance of desire. Aiden, no longer holding back, met each of them where they were, matching Selen's philosophical inquiries with depth, Nora's sensuality with equal fervor, and Tuyan's strength with his own. Hours later, as they lay tangled together in a complex arrangement of limbs and silver hair, Selen broke the silence. "You should know the truth," she said quietly, "about why we're here." Aiden propped himself up on one elbow, watching her face in the dim light. "Our grandfather didn't marry us off randomly," she continued. "In our culture, when granddaughters marry outside our species, they become part of the husband's family. They lose all political influence in our original house." "Convenient," Aiden observed. Tuyan nodded grimly. "The current leader of the Order of Resets had taken an interest in us." "We may have offended him," Nora added, tracing patterns on Aiden's chest. "Quite severely." "Grandfather feared retaliation against our entire house," Selen explained, "so he found the fastest way to remove us from the equation." "By marrying you to a random human," Aiden concluded. "Not so random, it seems," Tuyan said, studying him intently. Aiden's face revealed nothing but a ghost of a smile played at the corners of his mouth. "No," he agreed, "not so random at all." Dawn broke over the city skyline, casting long shadows across Aiden's apartment. He stood at the window, coffee cup in hand, watching the street below with narrowed eyes. "They're coming," he said quietly. The three princesses moved to join him. In the week they'd spent together, they'd developed an easy synchronicity, moving around each other with practiced grace. "How many?" Tuyan asked, already reaching for her weapon. "All of them," Aiden replied, taking a sip of his coffee. Selen frowned, analyzing the patterns of movement below. "That's excessive, even for the Order." Military-grade drones hovered at strategic points around the building. Mercenaries in unmarked combat gear positioned themselves at all exits. Elite assassins in the distinctive black cloaks of the Order's inner circle stalked across rooftops. And in the center of it all, a gleaming hover transport descended slowly to the street. Its doors slid open to reveal a tall figure draped in ceremonial regalia. "The leader himself," Nora whispered, her violet skin paling to lavender. "I didn't think he'd come personally." Aiden drained his coffee and set the cup down with a soft click. "I was hoping he would." Something in his tone made all three princesses turn to look at him. His face remained impassive, but his eyes held a dangerous glint they hadn't seen before. "You knew this was coming," Selen realized, her analytical mind connecting dots that had been scattered before her all along. Aiden smiled thinly. "Let's say I anticipated it." "What's the plan?" Tuyan demanded, her warrior instincts kicking into high alert. Aiden crossed the room to the utility closet and emerged with an ordinary mop. The princesses stared at him in disbelief. "That's your weapon?" Nora asked, unable to hide her dismay. "A cleaning implement?" "It'll do," Aiden replied casually, testing its weight in his hands. A menacing voice boomed through the building's communication system. "Aiden Kais, by order of the Supreme Reset Council, you and your alien consorts are sentenced to immediate erasure. Surrender now, and your deaths will be painless." Aiden sighed heavily. Always so dramatic. "We can't fight all of them," Selen reasoned, her mind calculating their dismal odds. "There must be over 100 fighters down there, plus the drones, plus whatever enhanced abilities the leader himself possesses." "We don't have to fight all of them," Aiden said, moving toward the door. "Just him." "And how do you propose to reach him through his army?" Tuyan scoffed. Aiden paused, his hand on the doorknob. "I'm going to walk." Without further explanation, he stepped into the hallway. The princesses exchanged alarmed glances before rushing after him. "This is suicide," Nora hissed, grabbing his arm. "At least take a proper weapon." Aiden gently disengaged from her grip. "Stay here if you want, or come watch. Either way, this ends today." He strode toward the elevator, the mop propped casually against his shoulder. After a moment's hesitation, the princesses followed. Outside, the morning air crackled with tension. The Order's forces had created a perimeter around the building, weapons trained on the entrance. In the center, the leader stood waiting, his face obscured by an ornate mask that reflected the morning light. Aiden stepped out alone, the mop still slung over his shoulder. A ripple of confusion passed through the assembled troops, followed by scattered laughter. "This is what has eluded us," the leader's augmented voice boomed. "A human with a cleaning tool?" Aiden continued walking forward, unhurried as if taking a morning stroll. The drones adjusted their targeting systems, red dots clustering on his chest. "Stop right there," commanded one of the elite assassins, stepping forward. Aiden ignored him, continuing his casual approach. "I said stop," the assassin barked, raising his weapon. In a move almost too fast to follow, Aiden swung the mop. The assassin's weapon shattered into fragments. A second swing caught the man in the chest, sending him flying backward into three of his comrades. The laughter died instantly. "Fire!" roared the leader. The air filled with energy bolts as every drone and soldier opened fire simultaneously. The princesses cried out from the entrance, certain they were about to witness Aiden's annihilation. But Aiden moved like liquid lightning, the mop becoming an extension of himself. He deflected bolts, dodged beams, and spun through gaps in the assault pattern that shouldn't have existed. With each swing of the mop, he disabled weapons, crushed drones, and incapacitated attackers. Bodies and broken machinery began to litter the ground around him as he carved an inexorable path toward the leader. "What is he?" Nora whispered, awestruck. "I don't know," Selin replied, her voice equally hushed, "but I don't think he's human. Not entirely." Tuyan watched with professional assessment. Those movements, they're ancient Siani combat forms, but executed with impossible speed and precision. No outsider should even know those techniques, let alone master them to this degree. As Aiden neared the center of the chaos, a particularly massive drone descended, unleashing a barrage that would have vaporized a small building. Aiden leapt impossible heights, landed on the drone's surface, and drove the end of the mop straight through its central processor. Using the falling machine as a platform, he launched himself directly at the leader. The leader, no longer smug, drew his ceremonial sword, a weapon rumored to be capable of cutting through dimensional barriers. He slashed at Aiden with desperate ferocity. Aiden parried with the mop handle, which should have been severed instantly by the dimensional blade. Instead, the sword's edge skittered off with a shower of sparks. The leader's masked face registered shock. "Impossible." "Not impossible," Aiden countered, striking with precision. "Just improbable." The battle between them escalated, becoming a blur of movement too rapid for ordinary eyes to follow. The remaining forces held their fire, unable to target Aiden without risking their leader. In the midst of the combat, Aiden's jacket tore away, then his shirt, revealing his torso. Across his back spread an enormous tattoo of a dragon, its scales shifting subtly with his movements, its eyes glowing with inner fire. A shocked murmur rippled through the assembled forces. Weapons lowered. Some fighters dropped to their knees. "It's him," whispered one of the elite assassins, "the founder." The leader froze mid-strike, his masked face turning toward the spreading ripple of recognition and fear. "No, impossible! The founder is a myth, a story to keep the lower ranks in line." Aiden ceased his attack, standing straight. The dragon tattoo pulsed with ethereal energy, the eyes tracking independently as if the creature were alive on his skin. "Not a myth," Aiden said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent battlefield. "Just retired." The leader staggered back. "No, it can't be. The founder disappeared 50 years ago." "I got bored," Aiden shrugged. "Decided to step back, see what would become of my creation." His expression hardened. "I've been disappointed." With a fluid motion, Aiden disarmed the leader, sending the dimensional sword clattering across the pavement. The leader fell to his knees. "Please," he begged, his voice no longer amplified, suddenly small and human. "I didn't know. I never would have targeted the granddaughters of Consul Zal Ro if you'd known they were under my protection." Aiden finished for him. "No, probably not. But you did. And worse, you corrupted the order, turned it from its original purpose." "What original purpose?" the leader asked, confusion evident even behind his mask. "Balance," Aiden said simply. "The order was meant to be the counterweight to digital immortality. As humans and aliens alike uploaded their consciousness, extended their lives, saturated the networks, something was needed to maintain equilibrium. The order of resets wasn't meant to be a terror organization. It was meant to be a natural force, like death in a world trying to escape it." Around them, the remaining forces of the order had all dropped to their knees, weapons discarded. From the entrance of the building, the three princesses watched in astonishment. "Stand up," Aiden commanded the leader. "Remove your mask. Show them who has led them into dishonor." With trembling hands, the leader removed his ornate mask, revealing a surprisingly young face, twisted with fear and ambition. "Kane Mercer," Aiden announced, loud enough for all to hear. "Former low-level reset technician. You murdered your way to leadership, didn't you? How many of the true council died by your hand?" Mercer's face contorted. "They were weak, unwilling to use the Order's power to its full potential." "The Order was never about power," Aiden corrected coldly. "It was about necessary endings, clean slates, second chances." He looked around at the kneeling soldiers. It was never meant to inspire terror. A small figure pushed through the crowd. Mira, Aiden's neighbor, now dressed in an impeccable business suit. "Sir," she said, bowing slightly, "everything has been prepared as you instructed. The network has been purged of corruption. The old protocols have been reinstated. The false records have been reset." "Thank you, Mira," Aiden nodded. "And the council members?" "Those who survived Mercer's purge have been located. They await your command." Mercer's eyes widened in realization. You've been planning this all along." "Since I learned you were targeting innocent women to satisfy your ego, yes," Aiden confirmed. "The marriage was an unexpected complication." "You orchestrated the marriage?" Selin asked, stepping forward from the entrance. The other princesses followed her. Aiden turned to face them. "Not exactly. When I learned of Mercer's interest in you, I made myself available as a potential match in the interplanetary database. Your grandfather was desperate enough to accept the first compatible candidate. I didn't expect the compatibility rating to be quite so comprehensive." Nora laughed suddenly. "You mean the system genuinely matched us? This wasn't just a political arrangement?" "The algorithm doesn't lie," Aiden said with a hint of a smile. "Though I had planned to simply protect you until Mercer could be removed. Not actually." "Marry us?" Tuyan supplied, her usually stern face softening slightly. "Yes. Well," Aiden cleared his throat, "plans change." Mercer, seeing Aiden's attention diverted, lunged for a discarded weapon. Before he could reach it, Aiden flicked the mop handle. It struck Mercer's temple with surgical precision, rendering him unconscious. "Take him into custody," Aiden instructed the nearest soldiers. "He'll face the council's judgment." As Mercer was dragged away, The princesses approached Aiden. "All this time," Selen said, studying him with new understanding, "you were the legendary founder of the Order of Resets." "A title I never particularly wanted," Aiden admitted. "I established the Order 200 years ago when digital immortality first became possible. Someone needed to ensure that with infinite life came appropriate consequences for actions. But you look." Nora gestured at his relatively youthful appearance. "Modifications," Aiden explained. "Not immortality, just extended durability. I wanted to observe what became of my creation, not rule it eternally." "And yet here you are, ruling again," Tuyan observed. Aiden frowned. "Temporarily, just long enough to restore the original purpose." Mira approached again, tablet in hand. "Sir, the council requests your presence, and—" she glanced at the princesses. "They extend their congratulations on your marriage." "Tell them I'll be there shortly," Aiden instructed. When Mira had gone, he turned back to the princesses. "I owe you an explanation, and an apology." "For saving our lives?" Nora asked with an arched eyebrow. "For the deception," he clarified. "I never intended to actually go through with the marriage. It was meant to be a temporary measure to keep you safe." "And now?" Selen asked directly. Aiden looked at each of them in turn. "Now, I find myself reluctant to annul it." A genuine smile spread across Nora's face. "Good, because I've grown rather fond of you, Earthman." "As have I," Selen admitted. "Despite the complications." Tuyan crossed her arms. "You're an acceptable mate. Your combat skills are adequate." Aiden laughed. "High praise indeed." 3 months later, a proper wedding ceremony united Aiden and the 3 princesses in the Grand Hall of the Order's headquarters. Representatives from Earth and the Shiani system attended, along with the newly reconstituted council. The Order itself had been transformed. No longer a terror organization, it returned to its original purpose, maintaining balance in a universe where digital existence threatened to overwhelm organic reality. Aiden established a new code: freedom to exist within or outside the digital network, with clear consequences for those who abused either realm. In their private chambers after the ceremony, Aiden found himself surrounded by his 3 wives, each unique, each now genuinely dear to him in different ways. "I never expected this," he admitted as they lounged together. "I stepped back into the light to stop a tyrant, and somehow gained a family." "The universe has a strange sense of humor," Selen observed. "Speaking of family," Nora said with a mischievous smile, "we've sent an invitation to Grandfather for dinner next week." Aiden raised an eyebrow. "And? Has he responded?" "He's coming," Tuyan confirmed, though his message suggested he's rather anxious about meeting his new grandson-in-law properly. "As well he should be," Aiden chuckled. "He did marry you off to the most dangerous man in the quadrant." "Lucky us," Nora purred, nestling closer. Life settled into a new normal. Aiden delegated most of the Order's operations to the Council, retaining only oversight authority. He and his wives split their time between Earth and the Shiani system, building bridges between worlds that had long viewed each other with suspicion. Their apartment was rebuilt, expanded to accommodate their unusual family. One morning, as Aiden brewed coffee in the kitchen, Mira installed a new sign on their door. "What's that?" Selen asked, peering over her shoulder. Mira stepped back, revealing the inscription. "Here lives one who is best left undisturbed, especially if he's wearing a bathrobe." Inside, Aiden smiled as he poured 4 cups of coffee. He could sense the arrival of a message from Consul Zal Ro, probably another nervous inquiry about next week's dinner. The old man had been chewing his nails down to the quick ever since learning the true identity of his granddaughter's husband. The dragon tattoo on Aiden's back shifted slightly, its eyes blinking in contentment. After centuries of solitude, The founder had found something he hadn't known he was missing, a family, and woe betide anyone who threatened it. The order of resets had been restored to its true purpose, and Aiden Kayes, its legendary founder, had finally found his own reset. A new beginning with 3 silver-haired princesses who had proven to be his perfect match after all. 5 years before the marriage that would reshape galactic power, Aiden Kayes stood on the observation deck of an abandoned space station in the Outer Rim. The vastness of space stretched before him, countless stars punctuating the darkness. His reflection in the reinforced glass showed a man who appeared to be in his mid-30s, though his true age was measured in centuries. "Sir, the reports you requested," said Mira, materializing silently beside him. Aiden took the neural data chip without looking. "Summarize." "The order has deviated significantly from its original protocols," Mira reported, her voice clinically precise. "Under Kane Mercer's influence, they've transitioned from balanced regulation to extortion, assassination, and political manipulation. Revenue streams now primarily come from fear rather than sanctioned resets." Aiden's jaw tightened. Casualties? 17 council members eliminated in the past 3 years, 46 regional directors replaced by Mercer loyalists, civilian erasures up 800%, most without proper authorization. The dragon tattoo on Aiden's back stirred, its eyes glowing faintly beneath his shirt. He had created the order during humanity's first digital expansion, a necessary counterbalance when people began uploading their consciousness and extending their lives indefinitely. Someone needed to ensure that action still had consequences, that the wealthy and powerful couldn't simply reset their digital existence whenever they made mistakes or committed crimes. "How did we miss this?" he asked quietly. Mira's composure never wavered. "You instructed minimal monitoring during your retirement, sir. The corruption occurred gradually, then exponentially once Mercer secured power." Aiden finally turned to look at his aide, Mira, his first and most loyal creation. Most saw only a petite, beautiful woman. Few knew she was a hybrid entity, part synthetic organism, part quantum AI, housed in a body that combined the best of organic and mechanical engineering. She was stronger than 20 combat droids, with a mind that could process information faster than most supercomputers. He had created her 200 years ago as his sentinel, his watcher, his one true confidant. "You've served me faithfully for centuries, Mira," Aiden said, studying her face. "Have I ever told you your origin story?" "No, sir," she replied. "You programmed me with awareness of my capabilities but not my creation." Aiden smiled faintly. "I was lonely. The burden of the order was too much for one man, even one with my modifications. I needed someone who would understand the weight of centuries, who could maintain perspective when I lost mine." He gestured to the stars. "I used fragments of my own consciousness mixed with the most advanced synthetic matrices of the time. You were my masterpiece, not merely an assistant, but a companion designed to outlast even me." Mira's expression softened slightly, a rare display of emotion. "I have always known my purpose was more than servitude, sir." "And yet you bow and call me sir," Aiden observed. "Protocol provides comfort to those around us," she answered simply. "And I respect what you built, what you stand for. My deference is genuine, not programmed." Aiden nodded, turning back to the stars. "The order needs cleansing, but a direct confrontation would cause chaos throughout the quadrant. We need subtlety." "Mercer has recently shown interest in the granddaughters of Consul Zal Ro," Mira noted. "Intelligence suggests he's planning to force a marriage alliance to gain influence in the Shiani diplomatic corps." "The princesses," Aiden mused. "I've heard they rejected his advances rather colorfully. The eldest called him A parasitic grub feeding on the corpse of a once noble institution, Mira confirmed, the faintest hint of amusement in her tone. The diplomatic incident required 3 mediators to resolve. A plan began forming in Aiden's mind. Access the interplanetary marriage database. Create a compatibility profile for me. Make it compelling enough to outrank Mercer, but not so perfect it raises suspicion. You intend to marry the princesses yourself? Mira asked, already interfacing with distant systems through her internal quantum link. I intend to protect them, Aiden clarified. The marriage is merely a legal shield. Of course, sir, Mira replied, though her expression suggested she knew more than she let on. In 2 centuries of service, she had observed patterns even Aiden himself couldn't see. 6 months before the wedding, Aiden occupied a small apartment in the city's mid-levels, close enough to the power centers to maintain surveillance, humble enough to avoid attention. He had orchestrated events with careful precision, subtle digital breadcrumbs leading Mercer to target the princesses, calculated insults to ensure the Consul would seek an emergency marriage solution, the perfect compatibility match injected into the system. But something unexpected happened during his preparation. Sir, Mira reported one evening, I've completed the psychological profiles of the Shiani princesses. And, Aiden asked, reviewing security protocols on his antique data terminal, one completely disconnected from central networks. They're remarkable, Mira said, displaying 3 holographic profiles. Selen's analytical intelligence rivals most quantum computers. Nora's empathic quotient is off the charts. She could have been a master diplomat if not for her rebellious nature. And Tuyan's combat testing shows reflexes that exceed even your enhanced baseline. Aiden studied the profiles with growing interest. They're not just political pawns, are they? Far from it, Mira confirmed. Based on my analysis, they may be the 3 most exceptional Shiani of their generation. It explains Mercer's fixation. Beyond political advantage, they represent genetic and intellectual capital he covets. For the first time in decades, Aiden felt genuine curiosity. Tell me more about them. Mira smiled, that subtle expression she wore when her creator revealed his rarely seen humanity. I thought you might ask that, sir. In the present day, 5 months after the confrontation with Mercer and the restoration of the order, Aiden sat in the private garden of their expanded home. The 3 princesses, his wives in truth now, not merely in legal fiction, lounged nearby, their silver hair gleaming in the afternoon sunlight. Selen looked up from her quantum theory text. You never did tell us how Mira came into your service. Aiden smiled. She's been with me almost from the beginning, my first and most perfect creation. Creation, Nora echoed, arching an elegant eyebrow. Mira is a hybrid entity, part synthetic, part organic, part quantum AI, Aiden explained. I created her 2 centuries ago when the loneliness of immortality became too much to bear. Tuyan, who had been practicing combat forms, paused mid-strike. That explains her impossible strength and speed. I've been trying to analyze her movements for months. She could take all 3 of us in combat, Aiden confirmed. Possibly me as well, though we've never tested that theory. And her loyalty? Selen asked. Is that programmed? Aiden shook his head. Earned. I gave her complete autonomy from the moment of her creation. Her servitude is her choice, renewed each day for 200 years. Why does she call you sir and bow like that? Nora wondered. I asked her that once, Aiden replied. She said, protocol provides comfort. I think she enjoys the formality. It creates a structure for her existence. The conversation paused as Mira herself appeared at the garden entrance. Sir, the Consul's shuttle has entered orbit. He'll arrive for dinner in approximately 40 minutes. Thank you, Mira. Aiden nodded. When she had gone, Nora stretched languidly. Poor grandfather. Still terrified you're going to erase him for offering us up as sacrificial brides. The irony being, Selen added, that his desperate arrangement saved us all. And gave us each other, Tuyan said with uncharacteristic softness. Aiden looked at his 3 wives, each extraordinary in her own way, each initially a means to an end who had become essential to his existence. Do you ever regret it? Being tied to someone like me? The princesses exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. We've discussed this, Selen answered for all of them. Finding a mate who could match each of us intellectually, emotionally, and physically seemed statistically impossible. Finding one who could match all 3 of us in our distinct areas of excellence was beyond calculation. Yet here you are, Nora smiled. Acceptable in all parameters, Tuyan agreed, which from her was the highest praise. Aiden felt the dragon tattoo warm against his skin, a bioquantum construct that served as both weapon and companion, the last fragment of a being from a dimension he'd encountered centuries ago. I should tell you something, he said carefully. Something I've confirmed with Selen's help. The 3 princesses looked at him expectantly. The compatibility algorithm that matched us. It wasn't just psychological or social. It included genetic compatibility as well. Selen nodded, a rare blush coloring her violet cheeks. I suspected as much when I analyzed the hormone shifts in all 3 of us. Nora gasped softly. You mean, yes, Aiden confirmed. All 3 of you are pregnant. According to Selen's analysis, the genetic combination is unprecedented. Tuyan's hand unconsciously moved to her abdomen. Warrior offspring? Something new, Aiden said. Human, Xiani, and whatever I've become over the centuries, plus trace elements of the quantum entity bonded to my spine. 3 children who will bridge worlds, Selen whispered, awe replacing her usual analytical detachment. The next generation of founders, Nora added, her eyes bright with emotion. Aiden looked at his wives, now the mothers of his children, and felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Hope for the future. Sir, Mira interrupted, appearing again at the entrance. Priority transmission from the Outer Rim. The anomaly we've been monitoring has expanded. Aiden's expression turned serious. He stood, the dragon on his back visibly stirring now. Show me. The holographic display revealed a tier in space-time, a rift between dimensions similar to the one he'd encountered when the dragon entity first bonded with him. It's calling to you, Mira said quietly. To all of you. The quantum signatures match both your dragon and the embryonic patterns in your wives. Selen joined him, studying the display with professional interest. A convergence point. The children aren't just our legacy, they're fulfilling some cosmic function. Always more mysteries, Aiden murmured, feeling the weight of new responsibility settle on his shoulders. Tuyan stepped to his right, her warrior stance mirroring his. Whatever comes through that rift, we face it together. Nora completed their circle, her hand finding his, as a family. As the rift pulsed in the holographic display, Aiden looked at the extraordinary women fate had bound to him, at loyal Mira who had stood by him through centuries, and at the new life growing within his wives. Whatever emerged from that dimensional tier, whatever new chapter was beginning, he was no longer the solitary founder walking alone through eternity. He was Aiden Kai's husband, father-to-be, and once more the active guardian of universal balance. The order of resets had been cleansed, but greater challenges loomed on the horizon, challenges that would require not just the founder, but the entire family he had unexpectedly found. The dragon tattoo's eyes glowed brilliantly, as if gazing into that uncertain future with anticipation rather than dread. Prepare my ship, Aiden instructed Mira, and accommodations for my family. It seems we have a new reset to oversee, Perhaps the greatest one yet. Mira bowed, a genuine smile lighting her ageless face. Yes, sir, the future awaits. The end.